Have you ever wondered how to go from this to get vegetables that you've dried in your dehydrator ready to use for a meal? Well, let me show you the ways that I use to rehydrate foods to help you get the most out of your dehydrated foods. I'm Darcy from the Purposeful Pantry, and I want to be your dehydrating BFF to show you how easy it is to dry your food, to put on your pantry for your family to use whenever you need and get ready for a meal. Okay, to get us started, I want to talk a little bit about how to know how much to rehydrate when you're about to make a meal. Standard ratio is 1/4 cup of dried vegetables is equal to approximately 1 cup of fresh. Okay, so you can take, as you're starting to scoop out things, if you're going to use it in food, you can do this measurement. It gets you an approximation. And remember, with cooking, the exact amounts don't matter. Go with your gut. Go with what you like. If you like it a little more, then use a little more. That's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. Just make sure that if you're adding it directly into a soup or stew and you're putting quite a bit of vegetables in there, make sure you add a little extra liquid to compensate for that amount of liquid that those vegetables are going to absorb. Now, if you're doing a meal, or if you're doing something like you need to know how many potatoes to put into a particular dish, like if you're going to make an au gratin, or if you're trying to get an exact amount, the best way to do this ahead of time is to weigh your food before you dehydrate it in whatever serving size that you need, dehydrate it, weigh it again, and that difference is the amount of water that's been removed. So when you're going to rehydrate that, you want to add that much water plus a little bit of extra after you've tested it to make sure that you have enough to compensate for what is put off in the steam. If you simmer on a stovetop, you just always have that adjustment there ready to go so that you can make those fine adjustments with it. But that's how you would do it if you're going to do a specific meal or a specific serving size. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do right now is go ahead and start working on what we're going to use today to show you all the ways I rehydrate. I'm using this general vegetable mix, but it would work on zucchini, it would work on onions, it would work on anything that you're working with. This is how I rehydrate in a couple of ways that you can do it. All right, so I'm just going to open up my can. So we're going to take 1/4 cup of our vegetable mix and put it in a jar. So what I have in my jar are 2 cups of vegetables in a dehydrative state, which is just 1/2 cup of vegetables. Okay, so there we go here. Okay, so our first version of rehydrating is the overnight method in your refrigerator. You can certainly start this earlier in the day. It doesn't have to be overnight, because if you're like me, sometimes you're not that ahead on your planning. So I might do this a couple of hours before dinner when I remember. So this is the way that you don't have to worry over a stove. So I put in enough water to cover the vegetables and give them a little extra water. I don't want things that aren't covered. They're going to soak up all that water. And then we're going to put a lid on and a ring, and then into the refrigerator this is going to go. All right, here's another way, either using a saucepan or your skillet, depending on how you're going to cook. This is a great way for me to do for onions and mushrooms and things that I'm about to put into a meal that will then turn around and get use some butter and oil to cook it up a little bit before I add it to something else. The saucepan is a good way for me to put something for vegetables that are going to be included in another meal that I don't have to do much more with them than just use the water or the broth. You can use broth as well. I just take some and put it into my saucepan like that, or into my skillet. My skillet is one of my more favorite ways to do it because I can seem to get more done in a better rate of time for me. It's just me and the skillet I prefer. But you can see how this works here. I've got them rehydrating here with some heat and here with some heat, and I will put them on a low simmer and just let them sit there for about 10 minutes, and we'll come back and see what they look like. And if you're at a campsite, this is likely the version you'll do most often, unless you have Mylar that you're putting hot water into your Mylar bag or putting a pouch into hot water. This is the kind of thing you'll do most often, which is putting your food into some water, getting it reheated, then cook whatever needs to be cooked, and there you go. Okay, I decided to go ahead and cook up this for my lunch today. Can we see this? Meal in a jar. It's basically hamburger meat, some vegetables, some seasoning at the bottom. We're going to put this in with what I've already had here and just get it up. Now it's going to require a little extra water because I like soup, which means I like soups that are really thick and hearty, not really watery soups, but I know this is going to take a little more water than I added the first point. And this is always a thing that you're going to have to go by a recipe. They usually tell you how much to put in to come up with a soup consistency. But you also make notes about you liked it this way, but next time you'll add more or less water or broth, whatever you're using, to get the consistency that you like each time. That's why taking notes is important. For tracking, I happen to use this little handy dandy notebook that I have that will give you a way to record all of your dehydrating projects here so that it gives you the instructions on how to dehydrate, some ways to use it or tips to make it work better for you, and lots of space to take your own notes, ways you might want to use it in dishes. And I even have quite a few recipes here at the back that will also give you plenty of space to take notes to see if it works better for you. So the dehydrating, this is what it looks like. It's the Dehydrating Basics and Journal that you can get on my website. I'll put a link down below and a link up here in the iCards. And I already know that with the soup, I'm going to need to add some more seasonings because the original part that I put together, I didn't put a lot of seasonings in it. And when I do some of these meals in a jar, I don't often follow a recipe. I just throw stuff together that looks good. And so I'm going to add some regular oregano. I'm going to add lots of garlic. It already has some onion in it, but I'm going to add just a little bit of extra onion powder. You can always use a little bit more. And then it's going to need a little salt. Stir it up some more. And what I'm doing now is not only am I letting this rehydrate, I'm also letting it cook. Okay, as we can see here, in the time that this has been simmering, most of the vegetables have come back to their normal size. The carrots always look a little squiggly to me, but they are all almost ready to go. Now what I want to do is allow them to cook. So I'm going to give them some more time. Some of the water will evaporate. And depending on the dish, the water can actually go into your dish. If I'm making a casserole, a little extra liquid is not going to hurt anything. Okay, so what you've got here, I don't know if you can see the color change, but the water here is kind of a yellowish color. That's because it has become vegetable broth. So don't think that you can't do anything with this water. As this simmers down, we're going to let most of it go. It will contain those vitamins that are water soluble in the water. They'll stay here. You can use them in your meal, or you can use this water to go out and water a plant or something in your vegetable garden in order to put back into the food that you're growing, the food that you need. The tip is to remember, when you're rehydrating dehydrated food, it still needs to be cooked unless you cooked it fully ahead of time. So if you're making dishes for the trail or a camping trip, you're going to want to probably go ahead and cook those first completely, then measure like we talked about, and that way you know how much to put back into it when you're on the trail. Okay, our next way is to use some hot water, boiling water, super hot. Get it in there, put some vegetables in your water, however much you need, and then do something to cover it, to keep that heat in there. This works especially well for things that you may not have access to a stovetop or microwave. You've only got hot water in a kettle, maybe a coffee maker in a hotel room. This can help keep the heat in your bowl to help things rehydrate and cook while they're there. You may need to do a second time depending on your vegetables, but that works as well. So you can see here, this is what they look like after it's been completely rehydrated overnight in the refrigerator. So now they're good to go. You can keep that broth and use it in your dish, or you can set it aside, add it to whatever water you're using to cook something else with that night, like maybe your rice, because that's vegetable broth that you just created, just like that. So some other ways that you can rehydrate besides what I've shown you how to do, you can use the thermos that you put your meal into and then put your water in and then close it up and then let it sit on your desk if you're at work and it can reheat while you sit there. You can use an Instapot without having to do any prior rehydration. So just throw your vegetables into your Instapot, add a little bit of extra liquid, and it will, the pressure from cooking in there will help rehydrate your food. So if you're making a soup or some kind of dish in there and you want to use dehydrated stuff, there's nothing that has to happen on the stovetop ahead of time. Just throw it in, go for your regular cooking. Make sure you take notes because notes are important so that you know if it worked out this way this time and it doesn't quite work the way another time, you can start tracking how that's better and make your foods better each time. So I hope that was helpful because that's the number one question I get asked all the time. But how do I use it? The best way that I can explain it is use it as you would have used fresh in a meal that you cook. Okay, that's the easiest way to say it. So just rehydrate how much you think you need, put it in your dish, add some more if you need to, and that's how you use it. That's as simple as it can be. You don't have to make it big and complicated. Okay, it works out really well. And if you need some ideas on like meals in a jar that you can put together, I'll have a link down in the description box below and up here in the iCards for you to go to my site where I've got a whole bunch of those recipes listed. So if you have ways that you rehydrate that are a little different than what I've done, please share them. I mean, these are just the ways that I do it. And there are probably 1,000 ways that other people do it as well. So I would love you to share your knowledge with all of us so we can learn because it's how we all get better. So until I see you again next time, remember that nevertheless, she preserved. Have a great day.